The first burials date back to prehistoric times when the dead would be placed into holes with a stone placed on top. Oftentimes, personal items would be buried with the dead. Sometimes, the dead would be placed in caves and the caves would be sealed shut. During the Middle Ages and the Victorian times, the dead were buried around churches. Because of the limited space, there were often many bodies placed into one hole. Plagues or diseases would rise up through the soil and dirt and infect most people attending church or children playing in the areas around the church. Later, laws were passed stating that it was illegal to bury a body any less than 6 feet under the ground. The first tombstones were just boulders placed on top of graves to keep the dead from crawling out. When the boulders started to be marked as grave sites, the only depictions were of skulls, skeletons, and the angel of death. Marking gravestones became a trade, and many gravestones were intricate and detailed. Religion is a very popular detail on gravestones. Christian symbols such as holy books and angels represent spirituality. Crosses are also a very popular symbol. Celtic crosses usually mark the grave of monks and priests. There are representations for other religions, such as the Star of David and the menorah for Judaism, and the crescent symbol for Islam. There are sometimes hands in different positions. Hands pointing up symbolize the pathway to heaven. Hands clasped show a farewell to the loved ones. The Highland Cemetery in Fort Mitchell is one of great history. It was established in 1869 after many years of planning. Citizens in that time were usually buried in the Craig Street Cemetery or the Linden Grove Cemetery. By 1868, the Craig Street Cemetery was full and the Linden Grove Cemetery wasn't far behind. Civic leaders began looking for another burial site. Originally wanting to buy 8 tracts of land, the civic leaders began to raise money for the purchase. On March 1st, 1869, it was concluded that of the 8 tracts, only 3 would be purchased. The total cost of the 3 tracts of land, a little more than 114 acres, cost $27,205. After months of construction, 1 tract of the cemetery was complete and ready for use. The cemetery held its dedication and official opening on June 22, 1869. Over 2,000 people were there to witness the dedication of the Highland Cemetery. Eventually, the cemetery grew larger than all expectations. It became one of Kentucky's largest nonprofit cemeteries. The chapel was rebuilt in 1917 after a fire had destroyed it. It was then used for services until 1947, where it was then strictly used for storage. Today, the Highland Cemetery covers 250 acres of land and has over 46,000 burials. There is over 150 acres that have not yet been used for burials. Plots today range between $975 and $1,375. This is a huge increase from the 12 to 21 cents per square foot that it was when it first opened. The cemetery includes mausoleums that were constructed in 1869, a garden to honor the deceased who chose to be cremated, as well as a pet cemetery for loved family pets. There are also lawn crypts, a grave in which 2 people may be laid to rest on 2 levels. Besides being a burial ground, Highland Cemetery has many nature trails. The trails are open to schools, scouts, or anyone who would like to visit. The cemetery also offers family-oriented programs focusing on indigenous wildlife. When created, the trails were installed as environmentally as possible in order to preserve vegetation. Since 1869, the Highland Cemetery has grown tremendously. From famous Kentuckians to beloved family pets, this cemetery has become a peaceful and final resting place to over 46,000 loved ones.